Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Hi, this is Gracie Howes with Pilma. Let's hit pause for just a second on this episode because I have to tell you about this event that every forward-thinking PI firm should have on their calendar this January. It's the AI for PI Expo in Orlando, Florida, January 15th through 17th. This is the very first conference of its kind dedicated entirely to showing personal injury firms how to harness AI to save time, cut costs, and grow faster. You'll get hands-on demos, practical training, and access to the best AI solutions built for law firms. Reserve your spot now at pilma.org/AI for PI Expo via the link in the show notes.
Hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. Today, we have the privilege and honor of having Eric Morgan with Roux Advertising out of the great city of New Orleans. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, great city, New Orleans. Finally, it's cooling off a little bit.
Yeah. So for those that don't know you, can you tell a little bit about yourself? You've been on the show before, and it's always good. So, but for those that have never heard you before, how about give a little background?
Yeah.
What your company does.
Yeah, Roux Advertising. We just hit our 28th birthday anniversary for Roux Advertising. You know, I grew up in the ad agency world, started this firm 28 years ago. Back in the day, my background is media planning and buying, which, as everybody knows, has evolved. And so we offer full service, a lot of emphasis on strategy, a lot of emphasis on positioning brands, and then from that position, translated into who the audience is, what the media channel plan looks like, managing those media campaigns, doing the analytics, and producing creative that goes along with the strategy.
Well, it's I'm looking forward to today. We're going to talk about something that's dear to my heart. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to start it out like this, and we'll take it from here. What do you see is the biggest mistake lawyers make when they decide they really want to get out there and market their law firm and compete with some of these? Because I'm getting a lot of calls, I'll be honest with you, from lawyers across the nation, especially smaller firms. And their cases are dwindling up because of the 800-pound gorillas and all the institutional money coming in and all these lead companies, and they're just sucking up the space. And the deal is, car wrecks are not increasing, they're decreasing. There's not an infinite amount. So there's some big deals going on. And I think lawyers, I think they make a big mistake right to start with, but I want to see what you think.
Yeah, so the main mistake that we see, and I'll phrase it like this way, it's a knee-jerk reaction to try and catch up with the other guy. You know, they see somebody wrapping a bus, they're going to wrap a bus. They see somebody plastering the metro area with billboards, they're going to do billboards. And so it becomes this contest of who can spend or scream, who can spend the most or scream the loudest. And using your phrase of the 800-pound gorilla, you know, there's some out there that it seems like they have endless pockets. They have a bottomless pocket. And you will not outscream them. You will not outspend them. You will not win on that strategy. And so we try and take a more methodical approach with our clients and say, look, if you can't outspend them or beat them, you know, from a checkbook standpoint, you've got to outsmart them. You know, there's a group of people out there that need your service, but you need to make sure that your service is aligned to what they're in need of. And you have to be true and authentic to who you are. And so we'll do things like brand realization where we dig deep into finding what's special and unique about that firm that they can own in a certain space that nobody else can touch, that even the 800-pound gorilla can't replicate. And this position, this purpose, is one that becomes, you know, a driving force of everything they do from a marketing standpoint. You know, it says this is why we stand alone and apart. This is what the value we bring, and it makes them memorable, you know, throughout all their marketing. And so We want to differentiate that brand because we know that the competition is yelling and screaming, and we want to be true and authentic. And that's going to resonate with an enormous amount of people, that this firm is more than just, getting a check. We'll get you the check, but it's also about certain things. This firm provides, this level of service, this attention to detail, or this approach. And it's those things that people are like, yeah, all these other ones are saying that they're going to yell, that they're going to get me my check and so forth. But really, that's common among all of them. Where's the differentiators that really make them stand apart? And so we're looking for those things, because if we can find those unique things, then you don't have to scream as much. You don't have to spend as much. And a lot of those things that say, this is our purpose, this is why we exist, this is our unique differentiator. And here's my elevator pitch that says that. A lot of those things then start expanding the right marketing. So you're not yelling and screaming and chasing the other guys, but you're going, this is who I am, this is what's right for me, and then here's how I'm going to roll out marketing in a methodical method where you're not chasing the other people. Because if you're chasing somebody, odds are you're never going to beat them. You're just going to follow them into eternity. And so we're like, let's chart your own path and say, here's what's relevant, and here's who it's relevant to. Here's how that group of people communicate. So now all of a sudden I know what media channels I need to do. Here's the words that I know are relevant to them. And so now I've got copy and scripts written and keywords for search and content for organic social. So all these things, once you do this exercise, all these things starts to open up some possibilities of, why are we relevant and why are we better or different than that other 800-pound gorilla?
Yeah, I think and that is hard to do. I talk about it to Pillman members all the time, and they just won't ignore that.
It is. It's hard to do because you really have to get to the root of it. And I've had the root of why you're practicing law, why you're running this firm, and what the team is all about. And I've asked clients this, and we're going through some of these exercises currently, this program, the brand realization program. And we've got to push clients a little bit to be uncomfortable, because they want to give a scripted answer. They want to give something that sounds a lot like the other people. And it's not that. Deep down inside, there's a reason why they started that firm. Deep down inside, there's a reason why they approach a case this way or that way, or the level of service. Or quite frankly, if it's a firm that has multiple attorneys, there's a reason, a junior attorney or an associate wants to work at that firm. It's not the managing partners, obviously, but it's, why did you want to work here? And they have a lot to say, because they're like, look, I've watched this firm. I've watched the managing attorneys. I've known them for years, and I see how they approach clients. I see how they approach customer service. I see how they approach, their firm and the people that are surrounding their firm and associated with their firm. And there's something special about it. And it's that we want to pinpoint that special, because that special drives potential content. That special thing drives what's going to be on that billboard and what's going to differentiate you from somebody that's just yelling and screaming that's got bottomless pocket.
And I want to ask you, do you think this was okay? There's probably a lot better ways to do it now, but I didn't. I was I don't know. I was in the desert alone 35 years ago. There weren't a lot of people that know what they were doing. I got a list of the last 100 past clients who had referred me other people. And I got a couple of my paralegals to call them and do a survey and ask them, what made you refer? What was it about this firm that made you refer so-and-so to us? And I'd ask them some other questions. What is it about our firm that you think is different than other firms? I mean, asking what the public, I figure somebody referred me a case had a reason for it, because we can't pay them, right? So they're doing it because they think it's a good thing for their friend or neighbor or family. And so I was trying to figure, and I can't remember all the questions. It was like 4 or 5 questions. And that's how we came up with our, they said we were all about client service. and putting the client first. And it was never about, we were never about them getting our fee. It was always putting whatever they needed first. And that's kind of what we went with, and then we developed the whole deal with a client service manual, a bill of rights, client bill of rights, advocate hotline. We just, everything we did was pushing that deal. And then we did a guarantee. You could get your case if you didn't think we did a good client service the first 30 days. All that stuff, and it kind of worked, I think. I mean, because we never could say we were the best, because that's unethical. We never could say we could, that we're going to get you a lot of money, because I didn't feel comfortable doing that, because you don't know what you're going to get somebody. I mean, you don't, not until the case is, not until they release.
Yeah, that's part of the homework that we give in this thing, where we ask the partners, managing partners, we have the ownership, we ask even the staff to look back and reflect, and also ask 5 clients, current, former clients, what were you thinking before you hired a firm? What was interesting about this firm? Having done business with this firm, looking back on it, what was the experience like? What do you know now that you didn't know then? Kind of questions. And then we also go through, because there's homework in the things that we do, homework for them, our clients, the law firms, and homework for us. And we'll come through social content, we'll come through reviews, we'll come through, testimonials and so forth, to try and get that sentiment of what it is and what do they say. Because again, people want to hear from other people just like them, that what was that experience like? Of course, the person who owns a law firm or is a doctor is going to say, we do great work. Me as a potential patient, I want to go hear another patient's story. I want to hear how they felt. And so hearing testimonial, taking that information and then using that as a basis of going, wow, this is how we impacted somebody's life. Wow, this is how we're different and we can stand apart. Hearing it in their own words is super powerful, because you then take out the legal speak. You then take out, the approach that a law firm owner would have, which is skewed, rightfully so, obviously. But then you translate it into the people that matter the most, which is your clients, the people that are making the phone calls, making the decision of what firm to hire, and understanding why they hired them, what they got out of it, what the experience was. It's gold. I mean, that's data, and data is the new gold.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if firms are capable of doing it themselves, Eric, because it's hard. It's harder to see the trees. Wait, what is it? Harder to see the trees when you're in the forest, or harder to see the forest when you're in the trees?
The forest through the trees, I believe, for the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's hard sometimes to self-analyze, because what you think. Because to be honest with you, when I was doing this stuff, I thought it'd be because I was tough. I was like a bulldog, and that was not what was impressing these people.
yeah, it's hard to do it until, what we found works really well is we give them homework up front. And obviously we're doing our own homework. And then there's a phase where we're in person and we're doing this workshop, and we're asking questions like, why does it matter? What do you stand for? What's meaningful? What gets you out of bed? What concerns? All these things. And we're having them write them down on these Post-it notes, and we're putting them all over the wall. And to your point, it's hard for them to do it, because their thoughts and their opinions and so forth are skewed. Rightfully so. We're all human. They need an independent person to come in, our team, and it's usually 2 of us, to kind of dig deeper, the 5 whys of why does this matter? Why is it important? And then peel back those layers to get to the root cause of this. And it starts revealing some interesting things. And the things that it reveals are not, we want to make sure that they've got the right representation in the courtroom. The things that reveal are like actually humanistic, basic human traits. And so I'm like, my God, these are, individuals who want to connect and support people, to just make sure that they have fair there's fairness in their life, and so that then becomes maybe a pillar of their potential brand. So yeah, it's great if you have an objective person that comes in from the outside who's done it and can kind of screen and move away from the legal speak and the marketing speak and get down to the basics.
You hit on something real important that I used to, and I haven't touched on it in years, and I'm surprised. I learned it many years ago. So when you're trying to do this, you said, the five whys, because when I'm trying to do it, if I'm trying to figure out what a differentiator is or whatever, somebody will come up and say, well, we do this. I said, and then I would ask them, so what? What does that mean? And then they say this, and I say, so what? What does that mean? And keep asking, so what, till they can't answer anymore. And then you get down to the real benefit. I like to use the example of a pencil with an eraser. And like somebody trying to sell it, I guess. So what? Well, it makes me quicker so I can erase mistakes. So what? So what does that mean? Well, that means I save time. So what? That means I can make more money. So what? That means I can spend more time with my family. I mean, if you just keep asking, so what, so what, so what? I don't know.
Yeah, it's that. It is absolutely that. And the funny thing is, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about a business owner going, "Oh, I need to have this meeting." Well, why do you need the meeting? Because so and so is going to give me this information. Well, why do you need that information? So I can make a decision about, something. It's like, well, you don't need a meeting. The meeting is pointless. You just need to make a decision. You need information. So drilling down not only helps from a marketing standpoint, but it helps from an operation because all of a
Yeah,
sudden you just eliminated a meeting by going through
yeah,
that exercise.
yeah, it's important. But I hadn't thought about that in years. You just kind of hit a light bulb in my head.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing because when you go through this, you get people into a very uncomfortable position, good in a good way. They start seeing things less through the lens of being attorneys or being a business owner and more of being somebody who's trying to connect and engage with an audience. And so there's a lot of like aha moments going on in these kind of programs and exercises.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can save so much money and be so much more effective if you've got a great message that stands out. It's like we were talking before this, and I always say, if somebody calls you, got to answer two questions. Do I need a lawyer? They say yes or no. And if I do, why should I choose you? And if you don't have that answer, you're in trouble. I mean, see, like me, what you're talking about doing is like essential, because then you don't have to spend as much to get the effect. You know what I'm saying? To get the brand. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever you get the
Well,
exposure.
it becomes an interesting process in that you all of a sudden know who you are, what value you bring, and why it matters to people, which then you now know what people it matters to. Okay. So you've already got your audience segmentation, you know, who you are and why you value, what your value is, all of a sudden starts driving what you're going to say. You know the people, so you can figure out what media channels. And in some cases, it's not broadcast or billboard or digital or whatever, but some cases it might be very specific community groups, and so all of a sudden you're not wrapping a bus because the firm down the street is wrapping a bus. You're charting your own path. And now you then have the ability to say, I'm not doing TV because TV doesn't make sense for who I want to communicate with and how I want to communicate and what I want to say. So you start eliminating or qualifying certain media channels, which means you're getting smarter about where you're spending your money. That's the beautiful part of this, is that now all of a sudden you're writing your own plan. You're not following somebody else's. You're not concerned as much. I will say there always is a concern about the 800-pound gorilla, but you're not concerned as much about it because I've got this plan. I've got this position. I know exactly who I'm talking to. I know exactly what I'm going to say to them. I know exactly how I'm going to communicate with them. And this is my predicted ROI that I want to get. These are what I want to accomplish, based on what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. I'm investing this kind of money. And for my market, the average cost per case should be that I sign should be, $1,500, $2,500, whatever market you're in. Great. Now I've got milestones and I've got metrics and ROI. And so everything starts kind of falling into place in this
Yeah,
beautiful plan. And you're not going, I'm going to throw good money away because somebody else is doing something. That might be right for them. Who knows? It might not be right for them. But don't do what other people are doing. Do what's right for you.
yeah. That's something. When I was practicing, I'd come out with something new or whatever, and within 12 months, there'd be other people doing it, and I might be ready to pull it off because it won't work. But I was trying to tweak it, and I'll play with something a while before I say, it ain't gonna work. But it's funny, they'll sit there and start spending the money, and I'm thinking, go ahead, man. I mean, but it's not gonna work.
Yeah. The interesting thing with, spending money is we have to remember, look, my background is media planning and buying, and I've done a lot of it in my career. At the end of the day, we're spending money on ad campaigns and media channels. We have to realize those are not line items on a P&L. Those should be revenue generators. Okay. So you need a plan that says this is who we are, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, this is who we're going to talk to, and then we're going to come up with what media channels we're going to use. And those channels absolutely need to be revenue generators. You need to, once you get this other stuff figured out, you then need to start piecing together, you know, how does a broadcast TV, how does billboards, how does digital drive revenue? Not clicks, not impressions. No, look, those are metrics. We use them internally, but they're not the metrics that we use to drive what we do. At the end of the day, attorneys want more clients. You own a restaurant, you want more customers. If you're selling pizzas, you want to sell more pizzas. That's the end. That's the end of the line. And so revenue generation is what the media channel, what the campaign should be doing. You should be looking at all the analytics that you need, and figure out if TV is broadcast, which TV broadcast, and broadcast is a great awareness vehicle and it's generating brand. Am I seeing a lift from searches around my brand? Are people calling me going, hey, is this, the Ken law firm? It's that we want to make sure if I'm running television, is my brand getting more exposure? And look, one thing that this industry is not doing, and we have divisions in healthcare and tourism and stuff, brands around the country, around the globe, constantly do brand studies, brand perception studies, where favorability, they're surveying people. One thing the law firms don't do is say, if I'm going to spend money on TV, how am I judging where my brand is in the market space? So maybe consider doing some surveys. It's anecdotal when, oh, I saw, my friend saw my ad on TV. Fine. But if you're investing tens of thousands of dollars or more in some markets, maybe consider do brand study every year just to see where you are with your competition. Especially with markets that have a lot of new names coming into them. It's important. But all media tactics need to be looking at, how is this a revenue generator and connecting those dots? Because at the end of the day, that's what media is. It's not a line item as an expense. It's a revenue generator.
Well, that brings me to something else you were saying, because you got brand awareness. I'm seeing a lot more, especially the younger firms are using these names that have nothing to do about law, but they're very memorable names. They're easy to remember, like Top Dog, Law Hawk, Sweet James. There's a bunch of them, but that's the three that pops off of my head.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, well, why are they doing this? And I'm thinking, well, maybe because their end game is to sell it out to an equity fund or something, and that's not tied to their name, because when something's tied to your name, it's, if the brand is you, it's kind of tough, to get full dollar. Maybe you kind of stuck with it. I don't know. But then again, I guess my big deal is, and I guess if you already built a hell of a brand, it's kind of hard to change it midstream too, I would think. I don't know. What's your take on that, Eric?
That last point is worth a lot of discussion in that it's hard to change midstream. So we do get asked that a fair amount of what about becoming, the hammer or the whatever. and fine in a lot of cases. And it's obviously worked, for a lot of brands around the country. The problem, or I guess what I push back on, is that it's a couple of things. One, are you doing it strictly from a marketing gimmick? All right. Can you live it? And is it really your personality and your identity? And are you ready to latch onto it for life, honestly? Because taking the latter one, if you're going to invest in it, you don't at a certain point, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, you don't want to walk away from it because you've built that equity into that brand and that perception. And so you're kind of hitching your wagon to it. Fine. Can you live it? Is it really you? In most cases, it's not that person. And I was at a conference last week and somebody's like, oh yeah, so and so. I'm like, yeah. Like, yeah, that's not really them. I'm like, yeah, it's not their personality. It's not true. It's not authentic. And if you're just doing it for a gimmick, the problem is people in that case are looking for a quick fix, something to make them stand out. But that's just short-lived. Somebody's going to come and get another quick fix that's going to one-up you. And then all of a sudden you're trapped because you already invested in it and you can't walk away from it. So I'm not a fan of them. Okay. They do work. They have worked for some brands, and there's a lot out there. But from a real position statement, it just doesn't jive, honestly. And so I would rather go and do this exercise instead of combing through whether I'm the hammer or the sweet wood James or the heavy, the strong arm, all those things. I'd rather go through and find something that's real, something that they can live with, something that they already are living with and doing, and turn that into a unique selling proposition, something that differentiates them from the market. And then that can evolve in certain scenarios or environments, whether that's in the community or marketing or how they interact with people. There's extensions, so to speak. Honestly, as time changes and culture changes a little bit and ownership and leadership changes, you can adjust it as need be. But if you're the hawk, you're tied into that. There's only certain things you can do. And so I'm not a fan of how confining they are and how much you're the bed you make and you have to lay in it for a very long time.
Let me ask you this, because this is something I'm seeing a lot of right now. You got a lot of lawyers, the most I've ever seen, and a lot of buyers that are looking to buy firms, and you got a lot of lawyers that are ready. They're tired, and they're baby boomers like me, and they're ready to get out of it. So if I'm a law firm, and I must say, one of the quickest ways to grow is to buy another firm, right? I mean, But the question I got, what do you do if that firm you're buying's been around for 30 years and they've got a brand, and then you've got another brand? How do you merge the two, or do you just keep them separate? I mean, what do you do when you get that situation?
I will say from firsthand experience, I ran two brands, and it is a pain in the butt. It is it is a massive pain in the butt. We ran two marketing firm brands simultaneously, and we're talking two websites, two sets of business cards, two emails, two personalities, two personas, two voices, you name it. And it just got to be challenging, and I phased the other brand out and rolled everything under Roux. I think to your question, it really depends upon the situation. Meaning, if they're within the same market, that's one situation. If they're separate markets, that's a whole different situation. And then you've got to assess the brand equity that exists with each one. I don't think that there's a simple, one one answer. I would say in a perfect world, you would roll them together or one would roll up under another just from a simplicity standpoint. Because if you've got two different brands, you've got two different marketing, you've got two different positioning, you've got, especially if it's really separate, you got two tax ID numbers, you got just, it can be really complicated and a very big pain in the butt from a marketing standpoint. Ideally, to make life easier, you would want to merge them, combine them, roll one under the other in some way, shape, or form. Now, which one you roll under the other, that's the big question. and it's a area of practice, it's longevity, it's history, it's notoriety, it's brand recognition. All these things come into play. Are you all in the same market? Or is it PI versus workers' comp, social security disability? How does that work? It would be great if, PI and social security disability, great, then you can merge two great forces becoming one. But if they're both PI, then it's kind of like, how to do it. Super interesting conversation. Unfortunately, there's not one. One answer. I am a fan of combining them at some time in the very near future. There is a path to get there. It's super easy. Some hard questions, but once you ask the hard questions, it's like, got it. Crystal clear. Here's what we need to do.
I mean, you see banks do it all the time. I mean, I just saw SunTrust and BB&T become Truist. And it was like a year and a half, 2-year transition. I mean, but now it's Truist.
Yeah. Well, execution is everything in that case. You want to make sure that you're over communicating to your client base. You're over communicating to your potential clients down the road. You're over communicating to constituents, to your colleagues, to potential lawyers that you're going to hire, and demonstrate and just provide proof that, look, this is actually for the good. This is going to make things better for you as our clientele. This is not two mid-sized firms are now going to be one large firm. Great. Now I'm just another number in a giant firm. No, you're actually getting better value for hiring us as your firm. And here's why. You got to explain it, demonstrate it, provide the proof, and live it, honestly, on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, man. This is really, I love talking to you because we get into some good stuff in depth. I like to go in deep on this stuff.
Same. I love this. So it's great. And I love talking about this. So as always, if anybody has questions, just pick my brain.
Yeah. And how can they get up with you if they want to talk to you?
Eric at Roux Advertising, ERIC at ROUX Advertising, rouxadvertising.com. We're on all the usual social media platforms. I'm on LinkedIn. And email me, call me, 504-561-5055. Happy to talk and chat, and you pick my brain.
That's great, man. I always enjoy talking to you. And
thank you. Same.
Don't see you before next year. Have a happy Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.